Welcome to American Scooter. Today, I'm getting after this 1960 something or other VBB. Yeah, so this thing's a bodge. Restored in Asia. It's restored by a company called Classical Wheels, classicalwheels.com, a defunct website. It belongs to a guy in town named Bjorn. This is not my first time working on this thing. It's been around for a while, and it's passed through my hands in the past. He called me while I was out of town. He had some trouble with it, and he left it at my house, and it's been here for quite a while, and I am just finally getting to it.
Oh, yeah, that's corroded. Okay. Oof, that is not look good at all. Okay, all right, so we're gonna fire up. I don't know where this goes, and I don't know where this goes, but something probably tells me that where at least the blue wire probably goes to this. Why are there two voltage regulators? Okay, let's see if we can start this thing.
So this isn't my first time working on a scooter from Classical Wheels. I actually have one in my scooter graveyard. It had previously belonged to a friend of mine, and when he sold it to another friend of mine, and well, that friend got hit by a car. He's fine now, that was some time ago. But I got the bike after that. The interesting thing about Classical Wheels was it was a company that sold them out of California, so it's not like on eBay, direct from wherever in Asia. And for the ones that I've seen, the bodies were, decent looking. The paintwork was okay, not a lot of Bondo, and they had LML engines in them. This one basically has a Stella engine in it. It's a 5-port LML with electric start. So the problem that Bjorn was having was the scooter wouldn't start. Well, it wouldn't start with the electric start, and none of the lights were working. But the bike ran. You could kick it over, and it would run, but none of the electric would work. And another problem he was having was the shift tube. It was basically wobbling around in the headset, and he couldn't ride it. He called me while I was out of town, and I told him to just drop it off, and when I get back, I'll get to it when I get to it. So I got home, and if you've been watching the channel, you've seen me pushing this thing in and out of the shop. I had a backlog of friends' junk to fix up, so now I'm finally getting to Bjorn's junk. Getting through all this electrical, just getting it sorted, I found that it had two voltage regulators for some reason. Both hooked up, one not outputting anything, neither outputting charge voltage to the battery. There was a ton of corrosion on all the connections, so basically, I got the bike running on the stand, went through everything, ultimately decided to swap out the two voltage regulators for a BGM universal regulator, and I wired everything back up. So that's what I'm getting after right now.
That wasn't hard. Sort of. The wiring at the voltage regulators, there's two of them for some reason. All the connections were corroded. Two of them were definitely not connected to anything. They were just wrapped up in tape and they'd been pulled on. The wiring's a little old. It started up, it's all working. There's no brake light, so I'm gonna pull the lens and check the bulb and make sure that's not burned out. But that's not the only problem. It's got another issue with the headset.
Bjorn left me this handy little note to let me know what was wrong with the shift tube.
This is the other thing I need to look at. This does this. So this is whatever's going on. There's probably maybe a broken, oh, no, there it is. It just broke loose. Yeah, that's just, yeah, so I gotta replace that. Good news is, I anticipated it and I've already got parts. Thing has this custom-made mirror bracket. This fits up in there with these little metal spacers, and the whole thing fits in there, except that it completely blocks the retaining screw for the speedometer. In and of itself, not exactly that big of a deal, but when I tighten the speedometer down, it pushes the speedometer, the bracket that holds the speedometer, it sandwiches the bracket that holds the gear selecting cables and the throttle cable in place. So it's bottom of the headset, cable bracket, then the speedometer. So when I tighten the speedometer down, it crushes everything together. I can't quite get it all lined up. I suppose maybe I could put the bolts in place for this first to line it all up, then put the speedometer screw in place, then take the bolts out, then get this back up in there. But it's all such a tight fit, I'm just struggling a lot with it. I mean, clearly somebody did this without having that bracket in place. There's no way to tighten that screw once this is there. So I'm gonna try and grind some of this aluminum away, and maybe I can get an Allen wrench in there. What a pain in the butt. Goggles, I need goggles. Safety third. That took way longer than I wanted it to. I really dislike VBBs and these small cast headsets because there's just not a lot of room to work in them, and I don't understand, like, I guess the Italians that just have really tiny hands, because my hands are not tiny, and it's really difficult sometimes. There's not a lot of space in there. Mirror bracket actually sits in there really secure. The problem is they're using the same mounting holes for the cable bracket. And there's enough space where they could have moved the mirror bracket farther up, closer to the headlight, used a completely separate set of hardware, drilled different hole. It just could have been set up differently, not been in the way of the speedometer. So it's all like sandwiched in there together, really strange. It's really hard to make it all fit up real nice. So now I've got it all back together, but the two gear selecting cables have sort of slipped back out again. And I think they've always been like that, and I also think that it'll be fine, but it just drives me crazy because I wanna set it up really precise, and I just can't because I sat here and just jamming my giant hand in there and just being mad the entire time. But it's more or less back together, but I need a break.
and I'm gonna go do something else for a while, and I'll probably come back and start working on the electrical later on after the sun's gone down or something. But I'm done for a while. Joko. It's a Joko. The hell? Is this? Huh. All right. I gotta push this strap into place. I can't pull it up. Maybe a wrench. That's gonna go with this. Let's see. So I had an old busted screwdriver. I also never throw away broken tools. So I just made this little cutout on my bench grinder. All right, let's see here if we can put this back together. Ooh, yeah. Okay. That's in there good and tight. Okay. That's tight. All right. Now this guy, maybe I'll just zip tie this on here. I'm gonna cover that somehow. Let's see. I buy this, it's actually not, well, it's electrical tape, but it's not regular electrical tape. It's actually rubber electrical tape, so it's super thick, and I use this quite a bit when I don't have
when you don't have boots or things to put on here. It's pretty decent to work with. Let's see, we're gonna cover this terminal as best we can. You can pick up this rubber electrical tape at Home Depot or Lowe's. Oh yeah, there we go. I always like to use a zip tie when I'm using the rubber electrical tape because it sticks really well, sort of. So this end will come off. As long as we hold this end with a zip tie, it'll stay in place. And then over time, as the adhesive on the tape cures, it'll become nice and solid. It's actually quite of a pain to take off after it's cured. But this will hold it in place. And now our positive terminal's covered and safe. And then we'll just add a little strain relief by adding a zip tie. Maybe right here, or should we tuck? Let's see. Since this is part of the negative harness on the bike, do we tuck this back here? Like that. Right in there. That's actually pretty nice, and maybe I could just attach this right here. I want to have some sort of strain relief, I think. Let's see. Hard to articulate my big sausage fingers in here. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah, and strain relief for our charger. All right, where's my little cutters? That guy, and got that guy. All right, this is looking super clean. Well, cleaner than it was. We got rid of the double voltage regulator, whatever that was. Put a proper fuse holder in place. Got everything cleaned up. This looks nice. Plenty of room in here to get all the junk he was carrying back in there. All right, I just got to put this door back on.
So now that I've got the electric done, I'm going to get back onto the rear of the bike and get these cables all hooked up. So I'm going to get after this clutch right now, and then I'm going to get on them gear cables.
Come on. Get back in there. So when tightening up gear cables, there's one easy little trick that I like to do. I never throw junk parts away, or rarely throw junk parts away. If you've got an old fuel tap laying around, fuel taps have these brass vent tubes on them. Here's like an old bent up brass vent tube. So I hang on to these because I can make a little cutout of it like this. And what I like to do is set my pinch bolt in place, sliding a little tube on there, and then that allows me a little extension, and I can actually get my fourth hand tool to grab on. And this way I can kind of push the pinch bolt all the way up in there. And now I think I'm rotating the thing. So what you got to be careful of, and setting the first one is the most important, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate my gear selector into the neutral position. Okay. So I'm in the neutral position. I actually put a little piece of blue painter's tape around the gear selector and the headset just to keep it from spinning. And I'm just going to go ahead and tighten up. And I'm just going to real gently push against it so I know that my pinch bolt is nice and tight. and then go ahead and tighten this little guy down. Another great tool for doing this is find what are called ignition wrenches. It's got a much thinner profile than a regular wrench, and it allows you to stack. You need an 8mm for the bottom part of the pinch bolt and a 7 for the top. And it allows you to stack 2 wrenches on top of each other. So there I've got my first one set. I'm going to go ahead and slide this pinch bolt on. All right. Now here's where this little technique becomes super useful. These cables, these are the original cables. They're in good shape, so I didn't swap them out. They're a little short, but we can grab on. There we go. So this allows me to grab on nice and tight, and I can make my pinch bolt super tight. And I can actually move the gear selector if I tighten it, if I tighten this too much. So I just like to get it nice and snug. Lock it into place. And now I can snug up my pinch bolt. There we go. Voila. This little junk brass tube helps me get these nice and super tight. Now I can also, adjust the slack with my adjusters, but I find generally that once I go ahead and do this, I don't have any slack on these cables at all. So now I'm gonna go ahead and peel my tape off, and I'm just gonna pull my clutch in, check my tension real quick. All of that feels really good. Let's see here. We look good, we're nice and lined up and neutral there, so this is good. So I'm gonna go ahead, tuck all this back together. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode of me working on Bjorn's bodge. They're not all that bad, right? Yeah, it's all shades of gray. Bjorn got it back, and he's super happy to be riding his VBB again. So hey, click the old like and subscribe. Keep an eye out. I'm going to be working on that white small frame real soon. All right, ciao.